The new 2025 Nissan Armada, and it's Nissan's fully redesigned big SUV to take on the Toyota Sequoia, the Jeep Grand Wagoneer, the Ford Expedition, the Chevy Tahoe, and others. The old Nissan Armada had gotten, well, old, but the new one has been thoroughly updated with a lot of improvements. And today, I'm going to review it and show you all of its quirks and features. Before we get started, are you ready for your next cool car? Sell your enthusiast car on Cars and Bids. Trading in your car to dealers means you aren't getting market value for your car, leaving you with less cash for your next fun car. Just look at our recent sales of these cool cars compared to current trade-in value. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is a trade-in offer, and this was the Cars and Bids result. This is the trade-in offer, and this is the Cars and Bids result. Get started now on carsandbids.com. Sell on Cars and Bids and join the best community to sell your enthusiast car. All right, time for the quirks and features of the new 25 Armada. And that's a pretty big deal in itself, a new Armada. The previous model had been on sale for almost a decade without a major change or redesign. So a brand new Armada finally showing up after all these years, that's a pretty big thing. And probably the most notable change to the Armada is under the hood. The old model used a V8 with about 400 horsepower and about 415 pound-feet of torque. It's gone, replaced by a twin-turbo V6 with about 425 horsepower and about 515 pound-feet of torque. So 25 more horsepower and 100 more pound-feet of torque, but you lose the 8 cylinders that the Armada has always had since it came out 20 years ago for the V6 instead. Now, fuel economy is expected to improve with this engine change, but exact EPA fuel economy figures haven't yet come out. However, the luxury version of the Armada, the Infiniti QX80, is already on sale. It's already been fuel economy rated at 18 miles per gallon, which is better than the 16 miles per gallon in the old V8 Armada. It's not a huge improvement, but I'd expect the new Armada to have roughly the same fuel economy as the QX80, 18 miles per gallon. Now, another big change for the new Armada is this model, the Pro 4X version, which is an off-road oriented trim that wasn't offered on Armada models before. The new Pro 4X is intended to rival other full-size off-roady SUVs like the Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro and the Chevy Tahoe Z71. The Pro 4X is positioned near the top of the Armada model range. The base model Armada starts around $58,000, but this starts around $76,000. And the top luxury version of the Armada starts around $79,000. So this is positioned similar to the luxury model, but instead of luxury, well, you get a lot of that, but you also get a lot of off-road. Now, another big change to the Armada comes in the way it looks. The outgoing model was rather roundy and curvy. Some people said it looked like a beluga whale. This one, however, is a lot more angular, muscular, aggressive. It's intending to look more purposeful and fur as opposed to the outgoing model. Loses the soft curves and definitely gets more sharper ones. Basically, every angle you look at it modernizes the car, but it also certainly adds sort of an aggressive element you didn't have in previous Armadas. Now, that's especially true of the off-roady Pro 4X model. This one, you can see this grille looks particularly aggressive and, well, off-roady. That's in comparison to the grille in the Platinum Reserve model, which you can see here, a little bit more luxurified, not intended to be so in your face like you'd get in the off-road version. Same deal with this little side vent. The Pro 4X model has this sort of crosshatch pattern intended to make it look more aggressive and sporty. The Platinum Reserve has more of a luxurious one with chrome trim.
intended to kind of dial things down. And same deal on the wheels. The Pro 4X has these black sort of angular designed wheels wrapped in all-terrain tires intended to make it more capable off the pavement. Meanwhile, the Platinum Reserve has 22-inch wheels compared to 20s on the Pro 4X. You can see they are chromed. They got some nice aluminum look with thinner, smaller tires, not for off-roading. Now, another Pro 4X change compared to other Armada models is the lava red trim inside and out. You most notice it here, this little strip in the back of the car that says Armada. That is the lava red, and apparently that is the Pro 4X like special color. Other Nissan Pro 4X models like the Frontier also have lava red accents, and so does this one. You can also see the Nissan emblem is finished in this lava red to distinguish the Pro 4X from other models. Another distinguishing feature for the Pro 4X is a skid plate. You can see it up here. Obviously, this is intended for off-road rock crawling. You don't want anything to damage the underside of the car when you're off-roading with your family, the big 3-row SUV. But it is nice to have that on there if you do go off-roading. And ground clearance is a pretty impressive thing. The Armada has 9.6 inches of max ground clearance, largely thanks to air suspension. Now, that's not unique to the Pro 4X. Other models, including the Platinum Reserve, also have air suspension, but if you use it for off-roady purposes, 9.6 inches of ground clearance is a pretty significant number that will take this car pretty far off the pavement. And next we move inside the new Armada, where the interior has been completely redesigned, which is an especially big deal. In fact, it's probably the most important change for the new Armada, because the old one's interior was starting to get pretty old, particularly in terms of technology. This one has a significant improvement. I'll cover that in a second, but first, let's talk buttons. This vehicle will be adored by button lovers because the center control stack is full of them. You can see a lot of buttons, dials, and switches in here. Physical controls, no slideys or haptics, you just have buttons. And there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of this is for the climate controls, which also includes the heated seats, the cooled seats, and the heated steering wheel. But you also have some stereo controls in here up top. You can see volume, next and previous track. Below all that, you have your off-road controls. So 4-wheel drive high, 4 low. You have your locking diff button located here. And this dial allows you to adjust and pick a terrain that you're driving on. And you can see there are many different adjustable terrains, from highway to snow to cactus to rock crawling. You can do it all here with this dial. Now, below that, there's even more buttons. These are your transmission buttons: park, reverse, neutral, and drive, as you can see, all included with the rest of the many buttons in this center control stack. And it's worth pointing out, one especially nice button to have in here is the one marked camera. You can see it right here. If you push that button, the camera instantly appears on the infotainment screen, which is nice. You don't have to go into some menu to find the camera if you're trying to park. That's especially nice to have in a big SUV like this, where the camera system can come in handy quite frequently in situations where you're not sure exactly where your corners are. It's nice to be able to just tap that button and go to camera. And the camera system here is pretty impressive. Not only do you have your usual front and rear, but there's also a top-down camera system. You have a 3D camera system that shows all the way around the outside of the car, and you even have an invisible front camera system that essentially makes the front of the car feel and seem invisible, so you know exactly what you're driving over. Exactly, for example, where the lines are in the parking lot at the grocery store, or if you're rock crawling and trying to steer around some rock, you don't want to run over it, you can see exactly the front of your car. That's a pretty good feature in a great camera system. And beyond all that, there's some nice storage solutions in this center console. For one, there's an additional lower part of the center console with more storage down below. So you can put some extra stuff down here and still have access to all of your buttons and your cup holder and your wireless charging pad in the upper part of the center console, which is pretty nice to see, the 2 tiers. You also have a rather large center console storage area under this lid and armrest. Open that, you can see it is quite big, quite deep, and you can put a lot of stuff in there. Now, also worth pointing out, in this center console area, you see a little badge that says since 1951. I guess that's Nissan's attempt at an Easter egg. A lot of brands are doing that, like putting little logos or images all throughout the car for people to find. In this case, this is all all you get. I'm sure that Nissan was founded in 1951. It's not the coolest Easter egg, but it's what they have. Now, it is worth pointing out you do also get a lot of lava red accents carried into the interior, since this is the Pro 4X model. So on the headrest, you can see Pro 4X is stitched right in there, and it's in that lava red trim. Same deal with this line going down the center of the seat, stitched into the seat center, and you can see on the dashboard some more lava red. Also, obviously on the steering wheel, lava red stitching and the Nissan logo. Again, all to tie in that sort of sporty off-road feel of Nissan's lava red Pro 4X color. And by the way, on the subject of materials, it's important to point out the Platinum Reserve model of the new Armada, which I also have on hand, has a really nice interior. You can see the materials are really top-notch, far better than what you get in the Pro 4X, which is more off-roady. The Platinum Reserve is intended to be this luxurious trim, and it really is. The seats look great, the leather, the stitching, there's nice trim, nice materials, basically everywhere you look, and not much in the way of cheap, crappy plastics. This is a nice interior in a nice car. Now, I recently reviewed the luxury version of this car, the Infiniti QX80, and I gotta say, the Platinum Reserve interior is not particularly far off of the QX80. It is basically Infiniti level luxury and quality, and it makes you wonder why someone would even bother stepping up to buy the Infiniti except for any perceived value that the Infiniti brand name adds. If you don't think that's worth it, you probably get the same level of pretty impressive luxury in the Platinum Reserve. But anyway, I mentioned earlier that the outgoing Armada was pretty low on technology, and this one is a big improvement. So let's talk infotainment. This center infotainment screen is quite large and quite excellent. It really is, and it incorporates a lot of well-known features people are going to love, like Google Maps is integrated into this system, Google Assistant is in here, Amazon Alexa is built into this car's infotainment, and of course Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So it's got basically everything you'd need. It's also very intuitive and very responsive to your touch, and I personally like the home screen with its widgets, which are obviously configurable to display whatever it is that you want on the home screen, whatever you might find most important. It is a really excellent infotainment system, kind of a surprise from Nissan, who's never really been the technology leader. This is really good. And it's the same deal with the gauge cluster screen, which is also pretty excellent. This is a full screen, as you can see, and it is quite configurable. You can use it to show a large map display, music, vehicle information, whatever you want, and you can change sizes of that to emphasize or de-emphasize whatever it is that you might want to see. It's all pretty good to have, and again, surprised at the high level of technology inside this car. And on the subject of technology, another important one to point out, the rear view mirror camera. You can see right now it's a rear view mirror, but if you flip this switch, it becomes a camera, a screen projecting from a camera installed in the back of the car, which is great to have, because if you fill this up with 3 rows of people, it can be hard to look through that mirror and see what's behind you. While the camera's back there behind all the people, you don't have to look through them when you're trying to make a lane change. That's a nice feature. And speaking of cameras, another nice feature this car has is a built-in dash cam that projects forward, so if you have an accident, you have footage to prove that you weren't the one at fault. Interestingly, there is also a built-in interior cam, as you can see right here. So if you want to see what's going on with your kids sitting in the back seat, are they fighting, touching each other, shouldn't be, etc., you can look in that interior camera, look back there, and see exactly what's going on without taking your eyes off the road, which is a pretty cool idea. And next we move on to the back seat, the second row in the Armada, which is huge, predictably huge. No surprise it's giant back here. It's a big SUV. You want big interior space, and boy do you get it. A lot of knee room, leg room, hip room, headroom. There's just a lot of space back here. I'm also interested and impressed to see a second row bench seat. The Sequoia TRD Pro, which I own, does not offer a bench in the off-roady version. You have to get buckets. Now, most people prefer second row buckets in a big SUV, but it's still nice to have the option, which the Armada offers. Now, it's worth pointing out that if you do get the second row buckets, you can see here in the Platinum Reserve what it has. 2 seats on the outside, and in the center, a center console with cup holders, and then also charge ports, which actually is pretty nice to have, because in the bench seat second row, the only way you get cup holders is if you fold down the center armrest to access them, which means that if you want cup holders back here, you gotta ditch that middle seat anyway. Still, it's nice to have the option for the second row bench, or cup holders. You can kind of decide. Now, other interesting things back here, you have heated rear seats, which is of course a nice luxury, and you have rear seat climate control, which obviously is also nice to have. You can adjust fan speed, temperature, where the air comes out, etc., all for the second row passengers. You also get 2 USB-C charge ports back here, which is nice, and 1 cigarette lighter style outlet for further device charging. Now, one other thing I like in the second row of the Pro 4X is how easy it is to move it out of the way. This latch here, you pull it and the backrest instantly folds down, so you can step on the backrest to climb into the third row. Or if you pull on this latch, the one by the shoulder of the seat, then the entire seat kind of moves forward and keeps its shape, which is nice to see if you have a car seat sitting in the seat. You don't want to take it out so people can get into the third row. The seat actually keeps its shape as it folds forward and up to allow easier third row access. That's a pretty trick way to get into the third row, and it's nice thinking for easy third row access. And speaking of the third row, let's talk through it. For one thing, sizing. You do have 3 seat belts back there for 3 across seating, but it is not particularly large. It's going to be hard to fit 3 people back there, especially 3 adults, and that's also true for legroom. You don't really have all that much back there, but that's pretty common in 3-row SUVs like this. The third row is not intended for large adults for long periods of time, just sort of shorter trips or for children. Now, the third row does have some nice features. You have a USB-C port on each side for charging devices, which is nice, and 2 individual cup holders on both sides of the third row seat. There's actually more cup holders that are easily accessible in the third row than in the second row. With that said, one drawback of the third row is that you lose the lava red accents. You don't have Pro 4X stitched into the headrests like you do in the first 2 rows. You don't have the lava red going down the seats. They cheaped out a little bit back there. First and second row passengers are bathed in lava red luxuries, but the third row has to make do with just your normal stitching. And then you have the cargo area. Open up the tailgate, power operated of course, and you can see into the cargo area, which behind the third row seats is not exactly huge. That again is no surprise. Most of these 3-row vehicles give a lot of their interior space to passenger room, and cargo space suffers a bit. You can get stuff in here, but it isn't massive, and it doesn't come with that cool shelf system that you get in the Toyota Sequoia, where you can sort of set up 2 shelves of stuff if you want to put more items back here, and that's a little bit of a drawback. Now, you do get some extra storage space under the floor in the cargo area. You lift up this lower floor and you can see there's a little extra storage under there, but it's not a huge compartment for massive stuff. Just a few smaller items can go under there. So cargo space with all the seats in place, not exactly massive. But there are some nice features back here. For one, you have a electrical power port. You can plug in like a household style outlet back here, which is nice to see for charging devices. You also have the ability to power fold the third row seats. You just push a button and the third row folds out of the way, which is nice. And of course, you can push the button the other direction and then the third row comes back up automatically. Also worth pointing out back here, you have the ability to fold the second row seats as well. You push this switch here and the second row will fold individually left and right. Now, this is not power folding. This is a mechanical release, so you can't automatically bring the second row back up. You have to actually go to the seat and put it back in place, but still nice to be able to lower the second and third rows of seats from the cargo area in case you show up to the truck and you just got a giant amount of stuff to put in. Put all the seats down from right back here. So there's your thorough tour of the quirks and features of the Armada. Now it's time to get it out on the road and see how it drives. All right, driving the new Armada Pro 4X. And I must say, I am almost uniquely qualified to review this vehicle because my regular car is one of this car's rivals in a very unusual small segment, the off-roader full-size SUV. The Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro is one of my normal daily driver cars. And so I've got about 10,000 miles behind the wheel of this car's closest and newest competitor. And the only other rivals really are the Tahoe Z71 and then the Yukon AT4, which is the GMC version. And then Ford has a off-roader, soft-roader version of the Expedition called the Timberline. But it's not quite as beefy. There's really only 3 close rivals in this segment, which is this, the Sequoia, and the Tahoe. And I happen to have had a lot of seat time in one. So I'm very curious to see how this will compare. First impression is I like a lot of stuff about the interior, and in fact the interior feels a little bit nicer than it does in my Toyota, which I'm surprised by. The Toyota, especially the Pro, a lot of the Sequoias are really nice, but especially the Pro, they went pretty far in the direction of making it like off-roady and like rough and tumble, and kind of at the expense of some quality in some cases. So there's some cheaper materials. There's not anything that rattles, but there's some stuff that doesn't feel all that premium. This car actually does feel like a nicer place to be in terms of interior quality. All right, so how does it feel behind the road? Well, first thing and most obvious thing, same problem that I have in my Sequoia, and same problem that these full-size